guys, welcome back to the Power Play. This is Katie, Chris, and Daisy. And again, you can listen to us online at wdsr.org and make sure you follow us on Twitter at PowerPlay14. So coming back into this segment, obviously we just recapped and talked about the women's gold medal game against Canada, but we can't forget about the men's also not necessarily gold medal game against Canada, but semifinal game against Canada. And what a heartbreaker that one was too for USA hockey fans.
And it was terrible for the Americans because before the game even started, Paul Martin was declared out with his hand injury, which he suffered in the quarterfinal against the Czech Republic. And from there, it was a tight game. Obviously, it was 1-0, and Canada played well, and the US played well, and both teams really traded punches throughout the game. I thought that we were headed to a long overtime and possibly a shootout, and then Canada prevailed in the end. But for the Americans to be shut out in a game after those group stages that was the most outstanding thing which I could see watching the game, was just how the US just got shut out. I know Smith played great for Canada, but the US just struggled to score.
It was like everyone was almost sitting on the couch watching this game, waiting for the United States to at least tie it up and to go into overtime and expect something just a little bit more from this game. You expected maybe Parise to be coming in clutch, just for something. After the last time when the United States met Canada for the gold medal and how dramatic that game was, this game just left you like feeling that you wanted a little bit more. It was just so, you just expected more. As you were sitting there watching it, it was like, this is the United States, the hockey team. These are the best of the best guys. And then you lose to Canada. You don't even register on the net. Like, you're no goals, nothing.
I mean, on a lighter note, I was actually at Permanis watching the game with a couple of my friends, and I was very disappointed that I didn't get to obnoxiously start chanting USA after an American goal. So, from a fan standpoint, it was a very, very disappointing, boring game. But when you look at the way both teams played, I mean, obviously Canada came out strong. They wanted that game so bad. And Carey Price, what a show he had in that. I mean, USA definitely had a lot of opportunities to score a goal, to, put it away maybe at some points while it was still 0-0. But all of Team Canada really stood on their heads, and they showed that they wanted it, and they completely deserved that win. And I think when you look at USA, Chris, you said it was outstanding to you that they didn't score a single goal in that game after they had routed so many teams in the games leading up to it. That, I think, was the most disappointing aspect of that game. Not that they lost, but because they were completely shut out.
And one thing which they did not do as much in this game as they had in the group stages was set up traffic in front of the net. I know Canada scored on a deflection. Jamie Benn scored the one and only goal. But the US really lacked a net front presence. I can't remember how many shots they had where they had somebody in front of Carey Price obstructing his view and adding a tip in. They struggled to do I won't say the fundamentals of hockey, but they struggled to do the fundamental things which they did earlier on to score goals. And Canada really put the US on their backs as far as clogging up the lanes. They did a good job of clogging up the US and stopping the speed.
I mean, for me, I think one of the things that always sticks with me when I watch, games like this is that, offense is obviously very important, but defense wins you games. And Canada played a great defensive game, and I think that was the biggest contributing factor between the defensive pairings at the blue line and Carey Price. That, I think, was absolutely clutch for them in coming away with the win like they did.
All right, and we are going to move on to where the United States ended up after that loss, and that is the atrocious bronze medal game against Finland. Do you guys have any initial thoughts on that game?
I thought it's probably the worst game that the US have played in the last decade. I know it's a big statement, but that team, after they went down 2-0, looked flat. They looked like they flat out gave up, and to see that. I know it's a bronze medal game. I know you go there to play gold, but they looked disinterested in the second and third periods.
I think what made that game even worse was that after they lost to Canada, Dan Bylsma made the statement, "We will be leaving Russia with a medal." And that's a pretty bold thing to say after you suffer a loss like that to Team Canada and know that you're going to be playing for the bronze. So, but you're right. They looked like they absolutely gave up in that game. I mean, to lose 5-0 to Finland. I mean, yeah, I called Finland for the bronze, but I was not expecting them to play USA for the bronze medal. But Patrick Kane missed 2 penalty shots. I mean, those are opportune moments to try and score, and to miss 1, okay, that's one thing, but to miss 2 when you have 2 opportunities in one game, that is huge. And when you're playing flat and you're playing lifeless, that's not going to help whatsoever. They bottom line, they gave up.
And Timu and Jokinen scored 11 seconds apart in the second period. That was, I think that shocked the US team. I think that probably even shocked the Finns to score that quickly against the US, and it set the standard for the rest of the second period and for the third period, because at that stage, I know that we talked in our first podcast that if the US fell down maybe 2 or 3-0, that they had the firepower to get back, but Tuukka Rask just played outstanding in that game. He as we know, he's a world-class goaltender. He stood up for the Bruins last year, and he was having a bit of a slump before he went into the Olympics. And the US just couldn't get anything by him. And good luck to Finland in the future, but they deserved that bronze medal more than the US team did.
Oh, absolutely. And I'm a big Tuukka Rask fan, Olympics aside. I think he's an outstanding goaltender. But I do have to say, even though I have been, Team USA all the way, it did really feel good as a Penguins fan to see Olli Määttä come away from the games with a medal. I mean, the kid is 19 years old, so not only was he chosen to play for Team Finland, he medaled with Team Finland in his first Olympic Games, and I think that is such a huge accomplishment for an athlete, and this kid's got a bright future ahead of him.
Do you think that this is going to affect Dan Bylsma at all when he comes back? I know the Olympics is separate from the NHL, and right now the Penguins are up, 15, 17 points on the Rangers. Do you feel like he's going to have any thoughts in his head, or do you think he's going to be able to put that right behind him?
I don't know if he's going to be able to put it right behind him. Something like that you just can't put in the back of your mind immediately. NHL season does start up again tomorrow, and the Penguins do play again on Thursday. But when you heard Dan Bylsma talk about the opportunity to coach Team USA, he talked about it, and said, "This is an ultimate dream come true. It's one of the highlights of my career." Something that big, of that magnitude, you can't just look past it and move on that quickly. I mean, yes, he will, and it's still early enough in the season that, he has time to kind of get over that and, get back into the style of play of the Pittsburgh Penguins. But I do think maybe for the first, 1 to 3 games, you might see a little bit of that kind of carry over from the Olympics.
And that's another topic of dispute. I know maybe more casual Penguins fans are a little bit nervous about how this is going to affect Bylsma coming back into the season, because everything that's been said has been, it was his system. It was his system. Well, he did have a system, but everyone has to remember that he's playing with players that aren't his own. They're not all Penguin members. He had Martin for a while there in Orpik, but that was about it. He had a different system in the Olympics, obviously, than he does with the Penguins. And if you're nervous about it, you have to remember that. And the Penguins have been so great all year. It was embarrassing to see the United States fall apart. Everyone was so excited for him to go. And he was really more excited from what we heard in the locker room today, asking a couple of different players about how they thought this was going to affect him for the rest of the season, that he was more excited about the experience, and they wanted to hear more about his experiences than the actual outcome of the games. I think everyone's a little embarrassed and doesn't want to talk about it, and I think the blame is just falling in his lap.
And I understand the criticism that he gets. He was managing the team. But at the same time, he isn't shooting on the ice. He isn't taking face-offs. In the end, the players which he had on the ice are good enough to win a medal, were good enough to win gold. And they didn't perform. Sure, the system didn't pay off in those key games that it mattered. But at the same time, the media finds someone to used as a scapegoat, and the easiest person to fault is Dan there, and I feel like the blame should probably be shared around.
And another thing, kind of going back to what Daisy was saying, not only did Bylsma only have 2 of the Pittsburgh Penguins on his team that he was coaching, and you have to adapt to the way that they've been coached on their NHL teams, he also had to coach against a lot of the Pittsburgh Penguins. I mean, when you have Sidney Crosby playing for you, and he's been playing for you ever since, he came in as a coach, how do you develop a strategy against him? When you know how good he is, and you know how teams try to prepare against him, and yet he can still make some of the greatest NHL players of today look, stupid sometimes on the ice just because he is that good. And, and not just Crosby. I mean, Team Canada is full of great players that you have to try to coach against. So, and then you look at Russia and, Malkin, he had to coach against Malkin. So that was a very daunting task for him. Not only figuring out how you're going to coach a whole brand new team of players on your coaching style, but how you're also going to coach against some of your best players in this tournament. So absolutely, it was a huge task that he was presented with. And I mean, yeah, they came up short, and I know it's probably going to sting for a while, but I think he did a very good job, and I think he made USA proud on some levels.
And at least some of the Penguins are actually coming home with a medal of the gold variety. I know a lot of Americans probably tuned out. There was a gold medal game. What did you guys take away from the gold medal game?
My favorite thing about the gold medal game, I did get to see this part of it. I didn't wake up. I was one of those people that wasn't so hype about it anymore after that horrible whole experience with Team USA. I really liked the fact Kunitz shut up doubters when Crosby basically set him up for a goal where it counted. His first goal of the Olympics. It was just a great time to actually finally score that goal and shut everyone up where it counted. And it was just great to see because he had been getting so much heat throughout the week about why was he even chosen for Team Canada, should have been someone else. There were a lot of great players that were up, and he shut everyone up, and it was just really great to see where it mattered.
And I know Crosby hadn't scored a lot in the tournament, and he played well. But Team Canada, we knew that they had the firepower. We talked that they just hadn't found the connection. But they played a lot better in the final. I feel like the Swedes were a good matchup for them. Offense versus defense. Obviously, Sweden wasn't at 100% strength with injuries through the tournament beforehand. But Canada played true to their style in the final. They scored goals and they were strong defensively. And in the end, they were just too strong for the Swedes. And I feel like that most of those Canadians mightn't have been happy with the way they played throughout the tournament. I'm sure if you look back and said, is there anything that we could improve on, there'd be a very long list. But at the same time, they won the gold medal. They did what they had to do when it mattered. They played tough against the US in the semis, and they played strong against Sweden. And at the end of the day, they did what mattered.
Yeah, I completely agree. And I think for this situation, the one sports quote that I heard that I think I can relate to this the most was that you play like you're in first place, but you practice like you're in second. And they definitely showed that against the Swedes. And like you said, very even matchup, and Daisy, I completely agree with you. Seeing Crosby and Kunitz both score goals was really great to see that. And they couldn't have picked a better game, honestly, to really come out and, silence all the critics.
And once again, Price was just amazing. 24 saves during that game. No goals allowed in the last 164 minutes of the tournament. He was just absolutely outstanding, really strong throughout the entire tournament. And congratulations to both Crosby and Kunitz for bringing a gold medal back to America, since we obviously can't even medal ourselves. But we are going to go ahead and take another quick break. You are listening to The Power Play on WDSR Radio. Give us a follow if you haven't already at The Power Play 14. This is Daisy, Katie, and Chris, and we'll be right back.